welcome to my channel. My name is Martine, and if you are new here, I do videos on Vedic astrology mainly, but also with some tropical insights, and I focus on both relationship and natal astrology. And if you like this video and you would like to see more content from me, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to my channel. Also consider clicking the notifications bell if you want to see when I will post a new video. Also, if you are interested in a private reading, I do readings in astrology on a variety of topics ranging from relationship readings to career to transits for 2-3 years, or solar return charts or predictions for 1 year, etc. You are free to email me at the email address that I will leave in the video description, and I can send you a pricing list and reading options and any other details that you might require. Also, I want to mention that I have started membership options on this channel, and the short of it, just to give you the short perks that you will get if you choose to join the membership section, you will get 1 extra video per month for each membership stage or tier. So for the first tier, you will get 1 extra video per month. For the second tier, you will get 2 extra videos per month, so you will have access to level 1 and level 2 videos. And for level 3 or third tier, you will get 3 extra videos per month. The level 1 and level 3 videos are going to be on a variety of topics, so basically anything related to astrology, but it will be content that is not shown on my regular usual videos, right? So this is members only exclusive content, and it can range from, tips and tricks on how to read a horoscope to, I haven't done this yet, but I plan on doing maybe members only astrological synastry for famous couples, for instance, or the analysis of famous people's horoscopes, but then I can also get into divisional charts, etc., etc. So all kinds of things. The level 1 or second tier of membership options is especially related to synastry astrology topics, meaning relationship-oriented astrology. So this could be things like how to discover which kind of partner archetype is right for you according to your horoscope, or it could be, again, different characteristics, whether you're going to have a good marriage according to your horoscope or a less than stellar marriage. But you can find more concrete examples in the lists that you will find in the video description, because I have added the playlists where you can already see all the videos that I have posted in each members section. So yeah, you can see what videos you will have access to from the ones that I have already done. But I will continue to post, like I said, 1 extra video per month for each level of membership. And in addition to that, in the members only section, you will have access to members only polls, and you will also have priority when it comes to getting your comments replied to on my channel. And you will also have stickers that basically show up next to your username that show that you are a member, and a couple of exclusive emojis. All right, so that's pretty much all the perks that you can have as a member on my channel. If you're curious, you can check the video description for more details as well, or you can click the join button under any of my videos to also see the prices, because the prices will be shown in your local currency. All right, in addition to the members only section, I also have a tarot channel, and I post there semi-regularly, and I will be linking the tarot channel in the video description as well as in the pinned comment. It's called Martine's Tarot. So if you are curious about tarot, if you're into it, maybe check out my channel, maybe subscribe. I would greatly appreciate it. Thank you very much for listening to this intro. And now I'm going to get straight into today's topic. Hello, so today's topic is going to be about the synastry analysis of Grimes and Elon Musk, as I have said on my community post. Before I get into it, I will try to give a short introduction, but I have to admit, again, I can't say that I have studied them in depth. The main thing that I do know about them is that they have a pretty weird relationship. They have, as far as I know, 3 kids together. But they've never been married, and I think they were together until the first child was born and maybe a little bit after. But obviously they have this kind of like weird connection where it seems to me like they are mostly together to have children. I don't know if you know this, but Elon Musk at least was very public about the fact that he thinks the world is heading for a depopulation crisis, and he actually joked about trying to help the matter. So he actually has kids with like, I don't even know exactly. I think it's 4 other, I mean, not other women. I think 4 women in total. He has 11 kids in total. That's what I do know. And 3 of those are with Grimes, right? And basically very unconventional relationship, but as far as I have read from her side, I was actually a fan of Grimes way before Elon Musk. I know that after she got together with Elon Musk, she started gaining a lot more popularity, and even people who didn't know who she was suddenly started to listen to her stuff. But I've actually liked her music since around 2014. And I always thought she was very weird and quirky and whatever. And one thing that I do know from her perspective is that, you know, she thinks that he is this really great guy. And I remember reading some interview she gave where she said that her life is forever dedicated to the cause. She said the cause, but she wasn't very clear about it. There were also some shady things that I have heard about them that apparently they have been linked to alt-right political movements, and even some political movement that thinks that something like the white race has to continue to be like, I don't know, at the forefront of humanity, and that they should have children among one another. I don't know. There were some like shady rumors, and apparently she was photographed with some people who were part of a neo-Nazi group and stuff like this. Again, these were like vaguely understood things, to be fair. I haven't studied their lives in depth. I just think that overall both of them are very unconventional, clearly, and they do seem to be quite political minded, let me put it like this, or let's say idealistic, or I think visionary would be a stretch, because it would mean that you agree with their vision. But, you know, there are people who definitely dedicate their energy to like some kind of a grand plan. And their relationship, like I said, is unconventional. Another thing that I have noticed about Elon Musk, since I have searched for, you know, his dating life information and all that, is that the man definitely has a type. If you look at his first wife, Justine, if you look at Tallulah Riley, who was an actress that he was married to twice, both of these women actually kind of looked alike. And then once he got together with Grimes, I think the rumor is that he makes all his girlfriends paint their hair, dye their hair blonde, which also seems kind of like mommy issues to me, to be fair, because they also kind of resemble his mother, which is very creepy and Freudian, but I won't get too much into that unless it pops up in the astrological profiles. So anyway, let me start straight with the relationship analysis. In fact, when it comes to analyzing synastry, in some ways, it's maybe best if you don't actually know the couple at all. I mean, in this case, of course, there might be things that can be traced back into information that was posted about them or something, but I'm just going to look at the relationship and pretend that I don't know anything about them. Unless something really pops up from memory and I will point it out. So first of all, again, I'm going to start with interaspects. So interaspects means an analysis from his chart to her chart, so aspects between each other's charts. I'm going to be looking first at Elon Musk, and well, actually, if you look at the screen, you're gonna see Elon Musk's placements on the outside with the red, and you're gonna see Grimes's placements on the inside with the blue. So, first thing that stands out right off the bat is that they have a Jupiter ascendant conjunction, which is pretty strong, and we see that it's his Jupiter and her ascendant right off the bat. This would definitely show some kind of a higher purpose. Again, I can't help but link it to the rumors that I have read about them, that basically they are somehow involved into political things. But even if they're not involved in politics, Jupiter is also about having a broad vision and also about a belief system. So it could be that they are united by, some kind of common values and belief systems, definitely, since she said that her life is dedicated to the cause, whatever the cause is. I mean, I'm guessing the cause has something to do with colonizing Mars, but it's probably not just that. Anyway, so that's the first thing that stood out. Then what I can see also equally important is that his Venus and his Saturn is falling in her 7th house, which is a pretty strong placement for attraction. Again, the fact that by the way, can I just stop right here and say that the fact that he has Venus in Taurus conjunct Saturn is so telling. Once again, if you look at the women that he has been romantically involved with, that they all kind of follow the same kind of physical type. And I think the physical type is quite nicely described by this conjunction. I mean, you're looking at women who, first of all, are kind of tall and slim. And that's typical for Saturnian beauty. You're looking at women who potentially could be models. I know that he was also linked to Amber Heard, by the way, and there are rumors that she actually had like an embryo frozen that was his baby or something like that. Anyway, won't get too much into the gossip, but anyway, if you just do a simple search of the women that he was linked to, you will see that he basically definitely has a type. And yeah, it's pretty Saturnian, like these very slender, I think some of them were even actually models, but they were definitely actresses, artists, whatever, which again would fall hand in hand with the Taurus archetype, women who are talented. Let's not forget that Taurus also rules the voice, and Grimes is a singer, so that could also be a thing. And but yeah, physically the bone structure, like prominent cheekbones, having this kind of frail and yet sharp bone structure and facial structure, that's typical for the Venus conjunct Saturn. Anyway, moving on to, let's see, we have Sun conjunct Mercury in her 8th house. So this could show a multitude of things. It could also show that it ignites her passion, because the 8th house is the house of passion. And it also shows that, I mean, on some level, he is transforming her life, which kind of makes sense. I mean, I'm sure that he has a very significant influence in her life. I mean, again, not just based on the things that she has said about him, but also, I mean, she also used him as an inspiration for, I think, some of her songs, or even an entire album. And a lot of people have said this, that basically after she got together with him, her style changed significantly, even musically. Anyway, so I'm sure that he had some kind of transformational effect on her. And aside from that, we see that his moon is in her 10th house. Moon in her 10th house would basically show that it would increase her popularity, which it definitely has. Ironically though, she actually has, if you look at her horoscope, she has Rahu in the 4th house and she has Ketu in the 10th house. So her life path seems to be more geared towards building a family actually in this lifetime. So again, maybe he was instrumental in this purpose. And also we see that her Ketu not only falls in her 10th house, but is therefore conjunct his moon, right? So her Ketu is in, let's see, where am I looking? Yeah, so her Ketu is in Leo. Of course, it's in Leo. And his moon is a Leo, all right? So it is a pretty wide conjunction. I think it's about 15 degrees apart, but it's still a conjunction because according to Vedic astrology, as long as two planets or 2 points are in the same sign, it still counts as a conjunction. So the conjunction between Moon and Ketu, I have done a video on this actually, the Moon conjunct Ketu or Rahu in synastry, so I will be linking that in the video description if you want to see a more in-depth interpretation. But the short of it is that this shows a past life contact most likely, and the theory according to traditional Vedic astrology is that this is not a great placement when the woman is the moon and when the man is the Ketu. In this situation, it's the other way around, but technically, as I think I pretty much mentioned this in that video as well, I think it's still pretty much a negative because Ketu conjunct the moon, irrespective of gender, basically shows that the longer two people are together, the less of an emotional connection they have. So it's like their emotional attachment to one another gets weaker with time. That's basically what Ketu shows. It shows a kind of growing disinterest on an emotional level. And it usually starts from the moon person, actually. So in this case, it would be Elon, which makes sense because, I mean, he was the one that basically, I think, again, I don't know if this was the case, but I'm pretty sure that she sang about it in a song or even mentioned it in an interview that he moved to Germany because he wanted to open, I mean, I don't know if he moved or he spent a lot of time in Europe because he was working on opening a Tesla in Berlin or something, and basically abandoned her for his ambitions. But obviously they do have an on and off thing because they have had kids in the meantime, even though they were not officially a couple. So yeah, anyway, this conjunction though, this is how it would play out. It would weaken the emotional attachment. Looking at other things, I also see an aspect between Mars and Venus. So first of all, he has Mars conjunct Rahu in Capricorn, which is an exalted Mars, and it's a sign of a very ambitious person, definitely, and also very materialistic. Also someone who could have a temper problem, which actually goes hand in hand with the information that was out there about him. Also considering his background, but again, I'm not going to psychoanalyze him too much. This isn't about him too much, his personal psychology. But in any case, we see the conjunction falling in her third house. This could mean inspiration on an intellectual plane. It could also, let's not forget also that the third house, the second and the third houses are the ones that are most connected to music. So, and the third house especially would have to be songwriting. So it would make sense. Like I said, she actually used him as an inspiration for some of her music. That could be how it played out. And then also just stimulating her intellectually, maybe looking at things from a different way, developing new interests, especially towards a technical area. So aside from that, his Mars aspects her Venus, my fourth aspect, because, and actually this would also stand in tropical astrology because his Mars is in Capricorn and her Venus is in Aries. Technically that's a square. In this case, it's also an aspect in Vedic astrology. It's a single-sided aspect from Mars to her Venus. So this is clearly an aspect that would increase physical attraction, sexual attraction, a lot of compatibility, a lot of passion, but usually the square between Venus and Mars together with the opposition are not very stable aspects unless they are backed up by a lot of other more stabilizing factors. They tend to fizzle out quickly and lead to, dissatisfactions and frustrations and mutual irritation. Yeah, it basically shows that one person's drive and ambition, actually, which is shown by Mars in this case, which belongs to Elon, is in conflict with the other person. In this case, Grimes's Venus, which stands for her values, for maybe her desire for comfort and, sugar, spice, and everything nice for pleasure and hedonism and just enjoyment in life. So there could have been a conflict there. Also, there is a square or a single-sided aspect between his Mars and her Jupiter at the same time, because she has Venus conjunct Jupiter in Aries, I think in Bharani, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, there is a square. So again, this would show conflicts on some level with respect to even belief systems, which are shown by Jupiter. That's what I'm trying to say. Principles and ambition. So like a conflict between maybe her worldview and her belief systems, and his ambition. Another thing. Let's see what first of all, he has Mercury and the Sun in the ascendant. That makes a lot of sense. First of all, a strong Sun would be understandable. And also, if I'm not mistaken, I think this is falling in Ardra Nakshatra. Let me check. I'm not 100% sure. So his Sun is in 12 degrees Gemini's Mercury is in 20 degrees Gemini. So his Sun definitely falls in Ardra. Well, I'm not shocked there, because his father is, according to him even, was a very abusive person. However, there's still some positive energy because the Sun falls in the first house. That's really strong directional strength in the first house. So that's still a father figure that gave him enough confidence. This is kind of a parenthesis on his situation. His Mercury, though, falls in Punarvasu, doesn't fall in Ardra. Yeah, Punarvasu, which again is a nakshatra that is known for kind of a religious approach to some extent, and also being Jupiterian, very focused on having a broad vision, like an eagle's view of the world. So that would make sense as well. And also this conjunction is called the Buddha Aditya Yoga, coming from Buddha, which is Mercury, and Aditya, one of the names for the sun. And this basically shows it's a conjunction of so-called instant karma. So the people who have this conjunction, if they do bad deeds, they get bad effects in life, in this lifetime, basically. But usually they don't do bad deeds, like karmically wrong things, because they learn to basically stay in check. In any case, Sun in Ardra makes a lot of sense. Can I just say this? Because he's so tech savvy and so unconventional and so weird. I'm pretty sure that, I'm actually not sure. I don't know exactly. But I know that there were rumors that he was neurodivergent, so it could be. In any case, aside from this, let's see what else I can pick up in the compatibility situation. So her Saturn is in Sagittarius. Let me check this. It's opposite his Mercury. Opposite his Mercury and his Sun. This trine his Moon. All right, so this would explain why they have kind of an on-off connection. They don't have any, let's see, let me actually check from his side as well. So he has Saturn in Taurus. Yeah, there is no conjunction here. There are some easy aspects, and then there are some not so easy aspects, We have a square to her Mercury, so they have mutual Saturn-Mercury negative aspects, which would tend to show conflicts between each of their desires to expand intellectually and explore intellectually on the one hand, and on the other hand, their long-term goals. if that makes sense. So Saturn would be like long-term plans, long-term goals, and Mercury is kind of a light-hearted energy that wants to play around, to keep options open, not romantically necessarily, but in life in general. So there seems to be like this mutual conflict between their desire to be, intellectually stimulated and free, and keeping options open and trying different things, having a kind of a free-spirited existence, and having like their long-term plans fulfilled. So there could be a conflict, and also there is maybe a mutual lack of understanding because of this. It could be that, when one person is serious and planning, the other person is very frivolous and lighthearted. So they have a hard time maybe respecting one another intellectually, to be honest. This is what I'm seeing here, especially with these hard aspects. Another thing, though, is I actually see this a lot with Saturn making hard aspects to the sun or the moon in synastry. So in this case, we have her Saturn opposite his sun. So Saturn acts as a kind of a restrictive force here, and especially since it's an opposition, this would mean that he basically perceives her to be kind of a ball and chain. Like maybe she was actually, whether she was actually trying to be is kind of irrelevant, because in this situation, it's about how the person perceives it. And in this aspect, the Sun person will perceive the Saturn person to be oppressive, maybe, or restrictive, or controlling on some level, or critical in a way. So, or maybe all of these things together. So somehow I feel like he perceives her to be restrictive and controlling. And from her Sun, we see, let me check. So her Sun is in Pisces. There's a trine to his Jupiter. So again, we have some benevolence here because, there's also a trine to her moon, but I'm going to get to that in a little bit. But we see the trine from her Sun to his Jupiter. That shows benevolence, giving each other the benefit of the doubt. It shows a lot of optimism, increase of opportunities while they are together. So this explains why maybe they keep coming back to one another, because, they have this kind of like lighthearted faith in one another because of these Jupiterian energies. We also have her Jupiter in Aries trine his moon. So they have mutual trines from each other's Jupiters. Let me just check the composite quickly. The composite. Yeah, we also have a trine in the composite. So Jupiter in Capricorn, trine moon in Taurus in the composite chart. So I think this is actually a very powerful aspect. I have mentioned the moon Jupiter aspects in a separate video where I talked about fertility enhancing aspects, and I did mention this as one of the two main fertility enhancing aspects. The other one is Mars to moon. But Jupiter is also very important because Jupiter is the planet that basically is the signifier for children according to Vedic astrology. This is why Jupiter is seen, according to one school of Vedic astrology. Can I just say this? Because as I have mentioned in another video, according to other schools, Mars is the spouse archetype. But according to one of the most commonly followed schools of astrology, Jupiter is the husband archetype and Mars is seen as a boyfriend. And the reasoning for this is given as Jupiter is actually the one that imparts knowledge and cares about legacy and education and all this stuff. So it's seen as, the karaka for children for that reason as well, because children are seen as like, also Jupiter rules the life sciences. And so children are life, a continuation of life. And children are also seen as a perpetuation of not just life, but a legacy and a certain tradition and a certain faith, a certain type of faith as well, traditionally, because, in the past, people would be born into a religion and they would stay into that religion. So these are things that are signified by Jupiter in any case. So Jupiter is very important when it comes to kids. And when you have these trines between or actually positive aspects in general. The trine, the sextile to a lesser extent, but the conjunction especially is the strongest. In this case, I would say that this trine is very strong because it's repeated in both charts and it's also existing in the composite chart. So this would definitely show that, they are bound together to have kids. They probably felt a strong desire to breed together, to have kids. But the interesting thing about Jupiter is that unlike the Mars Moon aspect, this is not like a question of like primal attraction or anything. So with the Mars Moon aspect, you just have like, basically biological instincts coming into play, and kind of like a primitive sort of caveman meets cavewoman sort of attraction, and they feel this strong desire to breed. Whereas with Jupiter, it's more intellectualized, it's more calculated, right? It's more about serving a spiritual purpose or a higher purpose or a vision, which again kind of makes sense considering the rumors about them. And Elon Musk going around saying how he is trying to get women pregnant to, to counteract the depopulation crisis, the upcoming depopulation crisis, which he swears is going to happen. But again, I'm not going to do a critique on him and what I think about him. So this is what I'm seeing though. With Jupiter, it definitely may have contributed to, why they have basically 3 kids, even though they're not officially married. And they have this very kind of unconventional relationship. And let me go back to, Elon Musk's horoscope. So this is pretty much what I see. Actually, let me check from the other way around to see if there's something new. So if Grimes' horoscope is on the outside, what I do see again is that, let me check, is also that her placement, so her Venus and her Jupiter fall in his 11th house. So the 11th house, interesting. I mean, the 11th house is a house of gains somehow. So it could be that this activated, considering the fact that the man is wealthy, I don't think this is strictly about money. I think this is more about increasing his popularity maybe somehow. And it's also visible that she has her Sun-Moon conjunction in Pisces in his 10th house. So again, that would increase his reputation and his somehow. I know people are going to maybe roll their eyes and be like, well, he doesn't need an increase in reputation. Maybe, but you have to take into account that, he is in his niche and she is in a different niche. So it could be that her influence opened up new audiences of popularity for him or something like that. Could be. Could also be lack of popularity, but won't dwell on that. So, and also, let's see. Another thing is that her Mars and Saturn are falling. So again, we see the 7th house being activated. So her Mars Saturn conjunction. Let me check. Yeah, so she has a Mars Saturn conjunction in Sagittarius, and it's falling in his 7th house. So again, we see Saturn falling in the 7th house mutually. So Saturn, which is the planet of responsibilities, and this is on top of the minor aspects and the fact that her Saturn is opposite his sun and stuff. So there are also inter-aspect, but there are also house activations here involving Saturn, which is the planet of longevity and the planet of kind of having a sense of responsibility for one another. I have talked about Saturn extensively in 2 separate videos where I discuss both the negative and the potentially positive outcomes of having a lot of Saturn in synastry. So I will try to link those in the video description, and you might want to check them out if you want to see more details about what I'm talking about. But basically, the theory in generally in both tropical and I think even in Vedic is that you need to kind of have Saturn aspects in order to have any kind of longevity in a relationship. Although the interesting thing here is that this didn't lead to a traditional marriage, traditional relationship. However, it is definitely long lasting, right? And they are bound together by having kids as well. So another thing is, let me check. Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I don't see, actually, let me check another thing. I don't see any huge drama. So I do see like a lot of Saturn, a lot of Jupiter, but I don't see like a lot of huge amounts of passion. Let's see. Actually, well, her Mars also is trine his moon. Can I just say that? So they do also have a moon Mars contact. It's not the strongest, but it is there. It's probably adding to the attraction. And let me check. From his Mars to her moon, there is a slight sextile, but it's pretty faint. Yeah, but still, they do have some kind of moon Mars action going on. And let me check. They also have, so he has his Saturn in Taurus, sextile her sun and her moon. So I definitely see here that I think she's the one who perceives him to be more beneficial. Also, let me check the Dark Karaka situation here. So if you look at her horoscope, she has the sun. Yeah, makes sense. I don't know if I talked about them at some point. Did I? No, I didn't. I don't think I did. Anyway, but maybe I came across a similar couple or a similar synastry here. But yeah, so she has Sun as Darakarka, which is the planet with the lowest degree, which also signifies the spouse. So definitely she would find him attractive, right? Because any woman who has Sun as Darakarka, well, in her case, it's also conjunct the moon. So the moon archetype and the sun are kind of linked together. The moon, ironically, would definitely, I mean, not ironically, it makes sense because the moon energy makes a person wax and wane. So this basically means, being changeable, being inconstant. So maybe it explains the on and off thing and why she is comfortable with it. Or it could also be that once they got together, he actually started to play out more of the moon archetype because of her influence. So he started becoming more moody and inconstant emotionally. Right, so there's this back and forth thing going on. It also shows that she appreciates a man with sensitivity, so maybe he does have a hidden sensitive side. I mean, he definitely makes it public that he cares about having a lot of kids, so I mean, that's one way of looking at it. Some men don't even care about kids at all. So in a way, maybe he does have like a hidden feminine side, and that's what she saw in him. But he also definitely embodies that sun archetype, and a man who has social status, who's kind of a protector and provider, quote unquote, in the most traditional sense, and someone who's out there in the limelight and a leader, an entrepreneur. That's very much the sun archetype. And from his perspective, if you look at his horoscope, let's see. So his Darakaraka is Jupiter, and it's opposite Saturn. He has, Jupiter in Scorpio, opposite Saturn in Taurus. His Saturn is in Kritika Nakshatra, which is interesting. It's interesting from the perspective of his life path and career, but I won't get into that. And so his Darakaraka shows that he likes smart women. He likes women who are also, in a way, visionary. Women who are intellectually stimulating, who are also capable of thinking for themselves, and women who are also quite jovial and optimistic on the one hand. But the interesting thing is that you do have the Saturn influence. So what happens here is that the kind of women that he goes for could turn out to be controlling or like they have a hidden dark side that he didn't anticipate, because Saturn can be kind of a wet blanket, so like when you see Saturn, especially in matters of romance, like Saturn with Venus, for instance, in a man's horoscope, and in this case Saturn with Darakaraka, can show that the partner tends to have dark moods, someone who could be depressed first and foremost, can be depressed, can be maybe too introverted, too morose, too dark, too pessimistic. I mean, if you look at Grimes, it's obvious that she's kind of dark. but I guess nobody knows the extent to which it can get to which it can get dark better than, you know, the people that are close to her. So maybe she's even darker once you get to know her or something. Anyway, but yes, he could easily end up in relationships that seem stifling and controlling because of this Saturn influence. So this could explain why he has a hard time. You know, finding a spouse that is long lasting, I guess. It could be. He also married one of his wives, I think, Tallulah Riley, twice. So, and I think she's the only one that he didn't have kids with. Maybe that's why they got married, because he really wanted kids and she wasn't, like, I don't know, having any or something. Anyway, won't get into that. But yeah, pretty much this is what I see from synastry overall. It's a pretty weird kind of synastry. Again, I am seeing how they play out their partner archetypes. Also looking at it from her perspective, let me check. I see her Mars is in Sagittarius, like I said, conjunct Saturn. Conjunct Saturn, yeah. This would definitely show an age difference with the spouse archetype. And what else we see? We see Venus aspecting, because Venus is in Aries. And we see, yeah, Jupiter also. We see Jupiter as well. So this would explain having a spouse that is wealthy, you know, and this is looking at her spouse archetype, even though technically they're not married. As far as I have heard, they haven't been married. But this also potentially shows, you know, long-term romantic partners. And one thing that you do see is that it is very likely she will attract wealthy partners because of the Jupiter and the Venus in the trine to Mars. This is based on a technique that I have developed more in depth in the video where I talked about wealth before or after marriage. So again, I'm going to link that video in the description as well if you want to check it out. I also gave some famous examples there. Yeah. Oh, I think that's where I also that's what I remembered. Sorry, I think it was Salma Hayek who also had Sun as Dark Karka, or one of the women that I talked about in that video. Anyway, so yeah, the tendency to attract wealthy men, but then also with Mars conjunct Saturn shows that the spouse is someone who is very, very hardworking, workaholic even, and someone who has also built a lot of wealth, because Saturn is stronger in this conjunction also. And the age difference is there as well. Like I said, usually when you see Saturn conjunct the partner archetype or sitting in the 7th house natally, you're looking at an age difference of 7+ years, basically. So you do see this. And all right, this is pretty much what I can see from their archetypes. I'm gonna look at the composite a little bit more. So one thing that I see is the Sun-Mercury conjunction. I have talked about this. I've done a separate video on it. I don't know if I mentioned this in other celebrity videos. I don't remember. I mean, obviously I don't remember the charts by heart, but I have mentioned this in the Mercury Sun conjunction in the composite chart video that I did ages ago, that you see this conjunction in like literally 9 couples out of 10 nowadays. And it basically shows compatibility on an intellectual plane. You know, it shows that people can be good friends. Okay, can I just start by saying that? And I also mentioned in that video how this conjunction, especially at the onset of a relationship, can give the illusion of more compatibility than there actually is, because we place so much emphasis on intellectual compatibility nowadays. Like, you know, we think that finishing each other's sentences is a sign that we are meant to be together, right? Anyway, I won't get too much in depth. I will link that video if you want to see the full analysis that I had on the Sun-Mercury conjunction in the composite. Where was I? Sorry about the pause. I got mixed up a little bit. So yeah, aside from that, another strong thing that I see in their composite is the Venus Moon conjunction. So this is very, very strong. It's definitely showing that there's a lot of love here. Like there's a lot of just pure affection. So I am definitely seeing this kind of like, this is really gonna sound messed up, but it's almost like almost kind of a sibling-like affection here, because when you see the moon and the Venus, there's just a lot of gentleness, a lot of tenderness, mutual affection. But when you just see this conjunction not aspected by Mars, or I mean, in this case, there is a trine by Mars as well, so that would add the, sexual attraction, sexual component. Oh, speaking of, the Mars aspect, we also see that they have the Mars-Jupiter conjunction in Capricorn trining the moon and also trining Venus. So again, this would confirm what I have mentioned about these aspects being baby makers. I have definitely talked more in depth about this in the video where I talked about the fertility enhancing aspects, and I've mentioned how I've seen this a lot in couples that have had kids. You especially see the conjunction between Moon and Mars, to be honest. Also the conjunction between Moon and Jupiter, whether it's in synastry as in chart interaspects, or if it's in synastry composite analysis, And I've mentioned a lot of other famous couples, I think, there. So again, you want to check it out for more details, if you would like to. But what I'm seeing here is, yeah, so scratch the sibling part. I don't think it's a sibling part. Hopefully not. Hopefully not. But I think it's like, it's also kind of a friendship, It's interesting because they do seem to have like a lot of love for one another. Maybe that's also why they are, at least from her perspective, she feels comfortable with this kind of a weird arrangement. Maybe they're just very secure emotionally in one another. And they just feel like they have something unbreakable that no matter what, it's going to be there. I mean, with the Moon, Venus, especially the conjunction, it would definitely suggest something like that, like a very strong emotional bond and a mutual understanding and a feeling that, they're getting their needs met emotionally and romantically. And then on top of that, you do have this extra boost from Mars and Jupiter, which makes things spicy a little bit. All right. What I do also see that stands out here like a sore thumb is the Saturn-Rahu conjunction, which is something that I also did a video on. I won't get in depth here. I did mention, I think in that video or in others, because I have had people ask me, that I haven't honestly analyzed too many composite charts where I have seen this conjunction, but here is an example because I've had people ask me, like, do you think the Saturn-Rahu conjunction in composite is going to play out the same way? And I would have said intuitively that yes, it would kind of play out the same way. But maybe in a slightly different way than if you see it happening between two charts. So again, I have done a video on the Saturn-Rahu conjunction in interchart aspects, and I will be linking that in the description if you want to see more about it. But basically, the short of it is that this kind of conjunction creates material obstacles in the path of the couple. So what I actually have seen, and I have mentioned some famous couples there, is that people tend to get together, usually with a lot of passion and whatever, and actually even getting together oftentimes is difficult because there are obstacles of the material order in their path. So things like in their case, for instance, the fact that he had to spend a lot of time in Europe and that she was living in Canada, I think. This is the kind of stuff that you would see with this conjunction. So things like one person has to leave because of other obligations. It could be like one person falls ill once they get into a relationship. So all kinds of like material hardships happen more and more as the relationship progresses, because the nature of Rahu is to basically magnify everything it touches. And Saturn is literally hardships, restrictions, frustrations, limitations, suffering in one word. So yeah, when you see this in synastry, It's definitely when it's between two aspects, it does spell trouble. And here we have an example that it's probably acting out in the composite chart as well. Obviously, I mean, I would have to track their relationship for longer, but I wouldn't be surprised if this is one of the main reasons why they are not officially together. They're not like in a traditional sense a couple. Let's not also forget that Saturn also rules tradition. So when you have like the planet of tradition, which is Saturn, conjunct the planet of nonconformism, which is Rahu, you would expect to see a relationship that is not traditional, especially since in their case it falls in the 7th house, which is the house of marriage. And then it also looks at the ascendant from that placement, which means that they're basically seen as weirdos as a couple, which again goes hand in hand with the stuff that I read about them. So makes sense. Also, though, with respect to how they're seen as a couple, we see the Moon-Venus conjunction in the 10th. So this would actually boost their image. It would make them look also quite charismatic together and maybe increase popularity, again, on both sides. We also see, again, the 9th house Jupiterian theme with the Sun and Mercury falling in the 9th house. So a lot of emphasis on, you know, like a long-term plan, a vision that they are pursuing together that maybe is, and not just this, but remember that the Sun in the composite is basically the ultimate purpose of the relationship, right? So yeah, the Sun being here would definitely show that they are, you know, dedicated towards some kind of a vision together. And also with the Moon in the 10th, they're comfortable. Well, I don't know if they're comfortable with but with the Moon in the 10th, this shows that both of them are going to be thrust in the spotlight. So, yeah, whether they're comfortable or not, that's another issue. That could also have led to why, you know, they're not very close in a relationship. And anyway, another thing that I wanted to say is looking at, again, the context between individual horoscopes and the composite, what I see is that her Venus is in Aries. So her Venus is in Aries. It means it's conjunct the composite Sun and Mercury. This means that she is very attached to the relationship. From his perspective, if you notice, if you look at his individual placements, there are no conjunctions to Aries, at least not to the Sun and Mercury. Let me check, actually. Conjunctions, let's see, do we have, yeah, we do have a conjunction, actually. We also have his Venus, actually, which is in Taurus, being conjunct the composite Moon and Venus conjunction in Taurus. So actually, there's a mutual attachment here to this relationship. So my guess is that they're going to be together in their, you know, maybe less than conventional ways for a long time. Because they're both very attached to this relationship. And yeah, they're basically in a way in love with the relationship itself, because Venus is like your romantic needs, your desires, your values. And for both of them, it shows that the relationship is basically going hand in hand with their values, their desires, also increasing their wealth potentially. That could be a thing, increasing chances for pleasure and all the things that are signified by Venus. So yeah, we do have that. Another thing, let me check. Oh, yes. Another thing that I noticed is his moon. Yeah, his moon, though, is a Leo, and it is opposite the composite Saturn-Rahu conjunction, falling in the ascendant still of the composite chart. So again, it would show that while he feels comfortable in this relationship, it's also taxing on him emotionally. Like somehow this relationship can feel, it's like the relationship itself, because remember the composite is basically like a separate entity. It's like the energy that is created through the two people being together. So in a weird way, like the relationship itself could prove to be, you know, tumultuous, like emotionally for him, like maybe depressing him emotionally because of the Saturn influence. Restricting him, making him feel not nurtured, not understood emotionally. That is something that is showing up here. Another thing is, let me look at her moon situation. So her moon is in Pisces. Her moon makes a sextile to the moon Venus. That's decent. And a sextile to the Mars Jupiter. That's decent. Not very strongly emotionally attached, but it's still there. There's some kind of influence. And she still has her Venus, conjunct the Sun-Mercury conjunction, which is a very strong attachment. Another thing, though, that really stands out is her North Node is falling in Aquarius. So for her, let me put it like this relationship seems fated. And maybe it was fated, who knows? But she has like her Rahu conjunct the composite Rahu-Saturn conjunction, and her Ketu falling in the composite ascendant. So somehow her destiny seems linked to this relationship. I'm pretty sure that she feels it as some kind of very fated, very significant thing, which makes sense because, again, she did decide to have kids with this guy. So it's not something to be taken lightheartedly. And for him also, like, wow, this is pretty amazing. Maybe they really were fated because, again, he also has Rahu in Capricorn. And but here we have a bit of a problem as well. From her perspective, there's a bit of a problem as well because she has Rahu conjunct the composite Saturn. Like I said, I just said that this conjunction between Saturn and Rahu is increasing troubles and increasing difficulties of a material kind in the material world as the relationship progresses. So it keeps increasing. So this would make sense, creating problems for her, like very challenging, but also from his perspective. So he has his Rahu in the individual chart conjunct Mars in the composite chart. So I have also done a video where I talked about the Rahu-Mars conjunction and the Ketu-Mars conjunction. And I've talked about how these are some of the most difficult placements. It's true that here they show up in a more unconventional way because his Rahu is being activated by a composite chart, not her chart per se. But I still feel like it counts because the Mars energy would again create anger, right? So somehow it could also just be that on the positive side, especially since Jupiter is also there, on the positive side, he feels like this relationship is actually in line with his trajectory, his life path, his overall goals, because also, by the way, he has a Mars Rahu conjunction. So it's not just that he has his Rahu conjunct the composite Mars, he also has his Mars conjunct the composite Mars. So it's a very strong aspect where he feels like this relationship is going hand in hand with his ambitions, his life purpose. It's energizing, but on the other hand, on the dark side, it can be irritating, creating anger, frustration on some level, creating more anger problems. It could be like issues with the relationship itself, not necessarily with Grimes as a person. Maybe because of, I don't know, it could even be because of the increased publicity or God knows what. All right, so these are some things that I see. Aside from this, last but not least, I'm going to be looking at the Guna Milan or the Guna Milan score. So this one is, I have mentioned, this is a purely traditional Indian thing, and this one in their case is pretty telling because they don't have a good score. So as you can see on the screen, they have a 15.5 out of 36. That's not a good score. You would need basically like a minimum of 18, at least above average, to say that, this relationship is worth a try. Now, if you look at it more in detail and towards the right side, you see the areas of life which are impacted. So you see that with respect to work, they have no compatibility. It's like zero, which makes sense because they operate in totally different areas of work, right? She's a musician, he's a scientist slash entrepreneur. Well, not scientist, but, a tech person. Um, and then we see that with respect to, here with dominance, to be honest, I'm not even 100% sure what this refers to, dominance. It could be maybe like their ability to be prominent in the world as a couple. Not great in any case. So basically none of the scores, they do have the overall compatibility score that is quite good. And they have the nature or Ghana compatibility, which is really good because both of them are Manushas, And this shows compatibility of temperament. Again, it would show like an easy kind of friendly communication, understanding. But look at this, with respect to love, we have 0. So to me, this would kind of show, again, what I have seen, that even though I'm sure that there is affection there, especially with the moon, Venus in the composite and all the other aspects that I've seen, I don't think that is the number one priority, especially not from his perspective, considering the things that he has said, It's like, there might be love, but it's subjective to, greater visions, to put it like this. And another thing that I do find kind of interesting, I have mentioned this in other videos, the Nadi Kut compatibility, the last one, which says health, they got 0 here, even though they have 3 kids that, as far as I know, are healthy up until this point. I have mentioned this in one other video, I think when I did another famous synastry analysis, that when you have a low score here, especially on 0, it can show having kids with problems, like, serious health problems. Or it could show that you have problems conceiving, having kids. Either conceiving or, bringing the pregnancy to term. So somehow it could be that there are problems in having kids. Clearly, this is not the case with them because, as usual, I'm not going to get that in depth. I'm sure that if you analyze their fertility situation in each cases, you would see that they're both strong, healthy, and fertile. And that's probably why it has overpowered this very poor score. But if you look at it, again, from a broad point of view in other people's horoscopes, and you see, let's say that they don't have great fertility, if you look at their individual horoscopes, and then on top of that, they have a 0 score here with the Nadi Kut, that would definitely increase the risk of something going wrong with either conception or delivery, or again, could be something wrong with the child after delivery, But luckily for them, it really didn't affect them, at least as far as we know up until this point, right? They have 3 kids. So yeah, but this is pretty much what I am seeing in the, actually there's one last thing that I wanted to check. Yeah, the birth path thing. Okay, this is numerology, so I don't even know. Normally, technically, I shouldn't even get into this, but I do check numerology, even though I don't mention it all the time in my videos. There's also a compatibility numerologically. So she's a birth path 1 and he's a birth path 7, which are basically weirdos. Birth path 7 with peace and love, because I might have birth path 7s watching this video. They tend to be very unusual, so best case scenario, you do have the geniuses out there, just like he is, someone who is extraordinary in a very positive sense, very visionary, ambitious, really only trusts his own judgment and, goes after what he wants no matter what other people think. But worst case scenario with the life path 7, you could also have people who have mental problems. Sometimes they could go hand in hand, because they're not mutually exclusive. And also birth path 7 tends to show isolation, like people who are just, because they're unconventional, have a hard time being socially accepted, or being popular, or just going in line with general society. On the other hand, her birth path, which is number 1, is very much suited for a creative path. And in any case, these odd numbers are usually compatible. So number 1 with 7, number 1 with 5, number 1 with 3, they're compatible. Number 1 with 9 is compatible. Yeah, so they're compatible from this perspective as well. And yeah, just thought I would throw it in as a last mention. But pretty much this is what I see with respect to their synastry. And I hope that you have enjoyed it. As usual, if you haven't, anything you would like to share, please share in the comment section. Also, maybe ideas for future videos that you would like me to cover. And also, if you want to find out more about getting a personal reading or becoming a member, check out the introductory segment on my channel, and you will find more information about that. All right, thank you very much for listening, and I hope to see you at my next video. Bye.